Hello, the world. This is They Will Kill, a true crime podcast. I am Courtney Eck.
And I'm Sadie Eck.
And it's Sadie's night. And we're both in kind of bad moods, but we're not going to let it affect you guys because honestly, I've been looking forward to this all day.
It's the best part of the day.
It really is. Thank God you people exist because otherwise I would just continue to be grumpy a little bit.
Yeah. My children are like, what's wrong with you? And I was like, grumpy, dude. I don't know.
Don't know, dude.
It's in the air. So
what do we have for them tonight, Sadie?
Well, tonight I'm telling you about the story of Vigilante killer Marianne Bachmeier.
Oh, I think this is very well timed considering what's going on in our country right now.
Yep.
Lay it on us.
So first I want to give a big shout out to our sweet and very helpful listener, Carolina, who lives in the Czech Republic. She helped me translate a few articles from German for the story, and I could not have done this without her help.
That is incredible. Thank you so much.
No, she translated whole on ass articles for me.
It's amazing. I would have given up right then. Thank you so much.
I know. Marianne Bachmeier was born on June 3rd, 1950, and grew up in a small town in West Germany. Her parents fled East Prussia at the end of World War II in 1945 to avoid the Red Army after reports of Soviet atrocities against Germans, which was spreading through the region. Mm-hmm. Marianne's father was a member of the Waffen-SS, which was the combat branch of the Nazi Party's protection squadron.
Whoops.
Yeah, the big baddies. He had even been rewarded the Knight's Cross, which is the highest award given to members of the Nazi military at the time. I would love to know more about that whole situation, but
Truly.
You know what we know about it is that it was awful.
It can go fuck itself.
Yes.
Yep.
So this gave the Bachmeiers even more reason to flee the Red Army's advances. Marianne would later tell journalists that she had a very hard upbringing. I mean, no shit. Mm-hmm. Her father had a rough transition back to civilian life and became a terrible alcoholic. Her parents divorced in 1954 when Marianne was just 4 years old. Soon after the divorce, her mother remarried a man who was a long-haul truck driver. When he was home, he would beat Marianne regularly. She wanted to continue a relationship with her dad, but wasn't allowed to see him unless it was his weekend to have her, so she would skip school and spend time with him.
And her dad's the Nazi, right? Her Nazi dad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I tried, it was hard to find much with my lack of German skills, but yeah, I just would love to know more. I guess, like I said, we could just guess that it was awful and he suffered and made people suffer, and it was just... She
suffered, everyone, nobody won. Nobody wins.
Yeah, and just thinking about, being born in 1950, Germany, 10 years after the war, just 5, sorry. Just 5 years after World War II ended, and... Ugh.
Complicated. Lots to sort through. Mm-hmm. Lots of baggage, yes.
So as she got older, she was kicked out of her home by her mother and stepfather a number of times. It was during this time, when she was homeless with nowhere to go, that she was raped for the first time while at a disco. In 1966, when Marianne was just 16 years old, she started dating a classmate who was the son of a wealthy businessman. After a few months of dating, Marianne found out she was pregnant.
I cannot catch a break.
Mm-mm. After giving birth to a little girl, the father of her baby dumped them both, and Marianne was forced to raise her daughter alone. Marianne's stepfather was furious with his stepdaughter for her unplanned pregnancy and sent her away to start an apprenticeship after the baby was born. And I hear that this is a common thing to do for kids that are out of high school, but leaving her newborn baby probably was not.
I would classify that as another trauma. Put that in the trauma section. Big one. Big trauma.
Yes. And I'm under the impression that Marianne's baby stayed with her grandparents while Marianne was away, but I couldn't verify that. 2 years later, Marianne got pregnant for a second time at 18. Oof. During this pregnancy, Marianne was raped again.
God.
This time, her attacker was caught and convicted of the attack and was sentenced to 1.5 years in prison. This experience was terribly traumatic for Marianne, and she attempted to take her own life. After this, Marianne felt too unstable and decided to give her oldest daughter up for adoption.
Wow.
And I think she gave the daughter up to her parents, but again, I couldn't confirm that.
Right.
And after giving birth to her second daughter in 1969, she also gave that baby up for adoption. Things did seem to turn around for Marianne when she met a man named Christian in 1972, and the two fell in love. Christian owned a local pub and did well for himself. Marianne would move in with him and live on his small organic farm.
Yes. Now we're talking. Let's
That's
stay
right.
here. Let's
That's why
stay on
we
this track.
unknowingly put farm clothes on tonight.
I know, Sadie, if you're on YouTube or TikTok, I'm the farmer and Sadie's the flower patch.
So after a few months together, they would learn that Marianne was pregnant for the third time. At 23 years old, her daughter Anna was born in 1972. Marianne and Christian decided to keep this baby, and Marianne had a tubal ligation after she gave birth. Things continued to go well for the little family. Anna was raised on the farm, which was full of animals, and Marianne described this as the happiest time of her life. Things got a little tough for the family when Christian bought an excursion steamer, which is, like a large paddle boat, with the hopes of making this his new business. But when that failed, he lost almost all of the family's money.
Bummer.
To help with their finances, Marianne opened a new pub to help them recover. This new spot was in the center of a visitor's district and was a huge success.
Good.
Because they were so busy, both Marianne and Christian worked long hours into the early morning, leaving little Anna alone much of the time. Not much is known about Anna, but she was described as a, quote, happy, open-minded child. It is clear that she fended for herself often and was late or missed school frequently. Marianne had to work long hours late into the night to keep her pub going, so she would usually sleep in and wouldn't wake up in time to get Anna off to school. On May 5th, 1980, Marianne woke late and realized that Anna, who was 7 years old at the time, was late for school. The two got into an argument and Anna left. Marianne believed she was heading to school, but really Anna decided to skip school and go to a friend's house.
Don't tell me. Do not tell me this is going where I think it's going.
It's going where you think it's going.
Okay.
Unfortunately for Anna, instead of making it safely to her friends, she ran into 35-year-old Klaus Grabowski, who lived next door to her friend. Yep. Here's a little trigger warning for violence against children. Grabowski was a convicted child molester who had 19 convictions against him.
My heavenly God.
Some of them were for child molestation.
Quick side note. I'm sure we're all watching the Steven Stayner miniseries on Hulu. If we are good at true crime, we are.
I haven't yet, so I'm not good at true crime.
I mean, it just came out. It's on your list. If it's not on your
Yes.
list, you're not good at true crime. Or you know the story really well because you're really good at true crime. But somebody made a comment in that about how they just didn't care about child molestation back then. Like they were like, and he got off with 3 years or whatever because they just didn't care.
Yep.
Like it just
We're going to
wasn't
talk
a
about that
crime.
here too. Yes. Yep.
And it just, I know that in my heart, and I know it's still kind of not a crime according to, depending on who's on trial, but man, oh man, we
Yep.
really effed it up continue to F it up, but we really effed it up back then.
Yes, we did. This is early 80s. Yep. In West Germany, it's rough. And I mean, like everywhere, but yes. He would later tell police that he lured Anna into his house by telling her he had cats that she could play with. She's 7. Once she was inside his home, he held her for several hours, sexually assaulted her, and then eventually strangled her with a pair of his girlfriend's pantyhose.
Give me a break.
After murdering Anna, Grabowski put her body in a cardboard box and left it on the banks of a nearby canal. The details of what happened next are a little fuzzy, but reports say that soon after Anna was murdered, Grabowski's girlfriend came home and surprised him. I get the impression that he had already disposed of Anna's body and was cleaning up the crime scene, but I can't be sure of that.
Mm-hmm.
Either way, Grabowski told his girlfriend what happened, and she went straight to the police.
Mm-hmm.
So Klaus Grabowski was a local butcher with a long criminal history. In 1975, he was arrested and convicted of the molestation of 2 little girls. He was sentenced to time in prison and volunteered to be chemically castrated in 1976.
Wow.
Like the rest of the world, Germany was going through its own sexual freedom movement in the 60s and 70s. Unfortunately, in some cases, the sexual freedom of pedophiles was considered more important than the safety of the children they abused.
Yep.
After going through the chemical castration, Grabowski was able to find a doctor to reverse the castration and bring him back to his full sexual function. Quote, I know. Quote, the doctor thought that Grabowski was still too young to give up his sexuality and thus resets a ticking time bomb.
Mm-hmm.
Marianne would later try to sue the doctor who helped Grabowski, but her case was thrown out of court.
Why?
The judge who threw out the case said, quote, a restaurant owner could not be held liable for the possible consequences of serving alcoholic beverages. Like, I get it. I don't know. I mean, it's just like...
Yeah, I would say, why were you chemically castrated? Let's start there. What? Not like, excuse me, sir, are you an alcoholic? Because before I serve you this alcohol, that's very different. But if you're a doctor presented with a patient who wants a reversal of a chemical castration, I would imagine that the number of self-imposed chemical castrations that have happened in the history of time is 11 at the very absolute most in all of the history of time.
Only 11 people have been chemically castrated?
No, have imposed it upon themselves.
Oh,
so I'm saying,
wow,
like,
court.
No, a lot. I personally know someone who was chemically castrated, right. So they know there's a lot. So you know what I'm saying? If you're the doctor and this guy shows up and is like, I want to reverse this, and you'd be like, maybe I should look into this a little bit further. Right. Anyway.
Yeah, and I'm guessing like voluntary. Maybe it was part of his, like, if you do this, we'll give you a lesser sentence. Like, I'm not sure how. He wasn't like, me please, is my guess.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Remember, I mean, he had 19 convictions.
Exactly.
When police brought Grabowski in for questioning, he fessed up to the murder right away. At first, he wouldn't explain why Anna had ended up in his home, but said that he had not planned to sexually abuse her. Then he had the motherfucking audacity to say that Anna had tried to seduce and extort him.
I'm sure it worked too. I'm sure the courts were like, well, she was a very attractive 7-year-old.
Right. Luckily it didn't work, but yes.
Thank God. One small mercy. But I'm positive that defense has probably worked a lot of times, a shocking number of times.
He told police that Anna said if he didn't give her 5 German marks, which is $3, she would tell her mother that he touched her inappropriately. His fear of going back to prison was so great, he decided to kill the 7-year-old instead. Because this is how these things happen.
Totally.
A day after Anna's murder, police told Marianne her daughter had been killed. Her already deep despair and anger only grew when police allowed her to read the transcript of Grabowski's confession.
Oh my God.
She was beyond horrified. So a year after Anna's murder, Grabowski went to trial. His defense claimed he had acted out because of a hormonal imbalance caused by hormone therapy he'd received after his castration. They conveniently left out the reason why he'd been castrated in the first place.
Totally.
On March 6th, 1981, on the third day of trial, Marianne smuggled a .22 caliber Beretta pistol into the courtroom. Shortly after the trial started for the day, she pulled the handgun from her purse and aimed it at Grabowski's back. She pulled the trigger and shot the gun 8 times until it was empty.
Wow.
Marianne managed to put 7 of the 8 bullets into Grabowski, and he died almost immediately while lying on the courtroom floor.
Unbelievable.
The trial judge said after the shooting, she heard Marianne say, quote, "He killed my daughter. I wanted to shoot him in the face, but I shot him in the back. I hope he's dead." Marianne was arrested on the spot and charged with murder. Anna's murder hadn't received much media attention up to this point, but Marianne's vigilante killing started a media storm. Major news outlets from around the world traveled to Germany to cover the killing. Within just 1 week of Grabowski's murder, Marianne received 100,000 DM, which is approximately 180,000 US dollars.
Wow.
In a week.
Wow.
Yes, she received this much money in donations for her legal costs.
Holy shit.
And while she was in jail, she received thousands of letters from supporters. Many people believed they would do the same thing if they were in her shoes and that she, quote, deserved a medal.
Yeah. I'm positive I would never take a human life, but I would very much fantasize about it. I'm positive that I would fantasize about it.
Yeah, it's tricky for me too. It's like I just don't really think we should be going around killing each other for whatever the reason it is. But I can't say that I don't understand.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I don't really blame her, like
But saying that, like, if somebody killed one of your children, I would probably kill them.
Yeah, I mean, definitely.
Like, my fury would be unmatched. It would be, I'm positive. So,
yeah. Well, to sit that close to them in trial and, like...
Yeah, I couldn't do it.
His little shit mouth lying about my daughter and blaming her for the murder and, like, that would be... Ugh.
Yep.
So. Marianne would sell her life story for about 250,000 DM to the news magazine Stern. So
wow.
She's just like making some money.
Vigilante fucking pay dirt. Yep.
After the articles were published, many continued to support Marianne and her actions, but others questioned if Marianne was just a ruthless killer herself. And I will say that from what I could gather, she loved to talk about herself. Marianne did. She didn't talk a lot about Anna. It was mostly about her and her life and the things that she'd been through. And, I don't think she would have killed otherwise, maybe, but...
No, that's a lot of trauma.
Yeah.
To have her daughter murdered so heinously.
Yes.
Yeah. That's nobody's
throws
surprised,
you over the edge. Right.
Totally.
So friends would later say that Marianne was considering putting Anna up for adoption soon before she died, and that she wasn't a very loving mother. But again, like, yeah.
It's complicated.
Yes.
Getting Nazi dad out of the gate. Like, what, how do you ever know how to love? How do you know how to do anything or love yourself yeah. It's complicated. I'm sure she loved her daughter.
Yeah, 100%.
Period.
Yes. Yeah. In the lead up to her trial, there was quite a bit of legal debate about whether the shooting was premeditated or not, or whether it was murder or manslaughter. After a long debate, Marianne's initial murder charges were lowered to manslaughter.
Wow.
And just a little side note, it turns out that Germany, and I don't know if it is had or still has, I couldn't find out if it's still around, but they have a, quote, Nazi murder law. They have Nazi murder laws in place still, at least as far as like 2015, 2016. I couldn't find anything more recently than that. That make differentiating between murder and manslaughter kind of tricky. So, quote, a surviving statute from 1941 means that women who kill their abusive husbands are more likely to be jailed for murder than husbands who beat their wives to death. According to the German Association of Lawyers, the Nazis decided that a murderer was someone who killed, quote, treacherously or sneakily. This means that a man who beats his wife over many years, finally killing her, is less likely to be convicted of murder, which comes with a mandatory life sentence, than to be convicted of manslaughter, which may mean only 5 years in jail. And the argument is that there was nothing sneaky or treacherous about him killing his wife, beating her to death, because it was upfront and direct and might have been expected.
Is that still the case?
I don't know. That's what I couldn't find out.
Holy shit.
I don't think that they necessarily read the law like this, but it is the law. So it's hard. And that's
Right.
like lawyers were coming forward and being like, it's really impossible to move forward with a law like this. Like it's instead of looking at each individual case and the motive and the, like anyway.
And sneakiness level.
Right. Yes.
Like, did you tiptoe into the courthouse?
Right. Yes.
Like, did you have your
That's
back
murder.
hunched and your little hands out in front of you in a menacing fashion, but also like quietly, like you're holding them out so you're being more quiet? Yes, ma'am. I did see that.
Yes. Or did you come in and announce, I am going to murder you tomorrow, and then do it? Okay, then that's just manslaughter.
Right. Good grief.
So Nazis defined murder in the light of their belief that some people were inherently weak-minded. It was about defining a murderer as someone treacherous rather than looking at the circumstances of each individual crime. The Nazi law favored the strong who murdered the weak. But I think that that's one of the reasons why they spent so long trying to decide Marianne if she was up for murder or manslaughter. Like, was she sneaky or was she upfront about it? Or
Was she wearing a cloak or a trench coat, black?
Yeah.
Or dark gray?
And honestly, I think she was a little bit of both. She was pretty sneaky about it, though.
Yeah, but she did bring a gun into a courthouse, and so unless she just carried a gun everywhere. So maybe maybe it was just manslaughter. Maybe she had a Nazi dad ass, so she very well could have carried guns with her everywhere she went, and then just decided, you know what, I'm gonna put this gun to use right now on this guy.
That's right.
Yep.
Well, when I was reading about the Nazi murder laws, I also read that when East and West Germany came together, East Germany had more like typical laws, like what we're used to, and they took the West Germany's like Nazi murder laws with them. Like they decided to go with that side of things. So,
Wow.
yeah, we'll have to ask people. Do you know if those laws still are in place, or did they reform them?
Probably reformed them.
I'm thinking so too, because it's not in the news anymore. So I'm assuming that they, like the last articles I could find were saying they were in the process of trying to get these things passed, new laws passed. And then I didn't hear anything else about it. So that kind of makes me think that they were like, okay, yes, let's do this a little differently.
I mean, yeah, as far as I know, Germans have really, really, really tried hard to distance themselves from their past and also be the best people they can possibly be moving forward. So I would be very surprised if those were still in place.
Although there was one person they interviewed in these articles that were like, well, we don't need to get rid of everything. Like the Nazis built the Autobahn and we're not going to rip that up. It's like, it's not the same thing. These are not the same thing.
No.
Anyway.
Yeah, we can keep the efficiencies, but lose the atrocities.
Yeah,
It's pretty easy to determine. Yeah, sir, but what about this chair that the Nazis... yeah, atrocities. Put it in the atrocities pile. Like, what the fuck?
I know. So Marianne's trial started in early 1983, and she would get on the stand in her own defense. She testified that she shot Grabowski in a dream where she saw visions of her daughter in the courtroom. A doctor who examined her said when Marianne was asked for a handwriting sample, she wrote, quote, "I did it for you, Anna," and then decorated the sample with 7 hearts, one for each year of Anna's life. After a 4-month-long trial, Marianne was found guilty of manslaughter and unlawful possession of a firearm and was sentenced to 6 years in prison.
Wow.
Once in prison, Marianne fell into a deep depression and lost her will to live. She would tell people she just wanted to, quote, get on Anna's way. She ended up attempting to die by suicide multiple times. She drank floor wax, swallowed shards of a mirror, and tried to hang herself.
Oh, buddy.
No. Due to these attempts, authorities decided to let Marianne out of prison early, and she was released in 1985.
Wow.
She just served 3 of her 6 years sentence. Hopefully, like, they were to get out of prison to go get mental health treatment.
I was going to say, did they transfer her somewhere? They're just like, good luck to you, madam.
I don't know for sure.
Yeah, I'm sure she's not their highest priority.
Right. After her release, Marianne moved to Nigeria with her new husband, who was a teacher. Wow. While there, they lived in a German camp where her husband taught at a German school.
Wow.
She stayed there until she got a divorce and moved to Sicily in the 1990s. In September 1995, Marianne appeared on a talk show where she admitted she had shot the killer of her daughter after careful consideration. She wanted to enforce the law on him and prevent him from further spreading lies about Anna. A friend of Marianne's, who was featured in a separate documentary about the case, claimed to have witnessed Marianne perform target practice with a gun in her pub cellar before the shooting. So definitely premeditated.
I mean, yeah, I think we all assume.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
So while in Sicily, Marianne was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer.
Ugh.
After this diagnosis, she moved back to Germany. Marianne said she would dream often about Anna. In these dreams, she would see Anna wearing a white summer dress. She would be picking flowers in an endless green meadow. At some point, Anna would throw a bouquet in the air and call out with a laugh, saying, "Mom, I'm waiting for you. When are you coming?"
Buddy.
Marianne asked a reporter to film the last few weeks of her life, and she passed away on September 17th, 1996. She was just 46 years old.
Wow.
She was buried next to her daughter, Anna.
Oh, bud. God.
And that is the crazy story of Marianne Bachmeier.
She just got it done. She was like, I have seen enough. I have been through enough. I am just going to wrap this up, people. I do not have the time. I do not have the energy. Done. Bye. You should have put him away after the offense, let alone 19 offenses. Get your shit together.
Yep.
People.
Yep. And the fact that he was living right next to a 7-year-old's best friend. Like,
it's a lot. It's all a lot. It is a lot.
I know. There's lots to pick apart in this one, but I don't think either of us have it in us.
No. We got Nazis. We got pedophiles. We are punching microphones. Yeah. What do you guys think, though?
Yeah, tell us what you think. I want to know what do you know, like that idea of vigilante killing, you know?
I've said this before. I'm like, if I had nothing to live for, you know, like if I lost everything that I cared about, I have fantasized about vigilante justice. I'm like, what would make me feel better? Yep, vigilante shit. And I don't know what, because I can't like swish bugs, so I don't know what I would do to people once I got them. But maybe just like give them a really bad day or something.
Look at them mean with our eyes.
You know what I mean? Just like, what would I do? I don't want to like maybe mess with their car or something. I don't know. I would figure something out.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm too afraid of karma. I wouldn't actually, but it's like, it's a comforting thought to think about doing vigilante justice. Yep. Expose them. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like,
yes.
But nobody really cares. They've already been, I don't know. Dexter stuff. Oh yeah, I would just lay down plastic and stab him in the chest.
Oh, right. Oh, that's fair. That's good.
Oh my God. But yeah, tell us what you think.
Thanks for watching.
Thank you for watching.
Goodbye.